Going on, guys? JD at JD's Custom Buggies. So, kind of set aside and shelved the Stroker 200 project for now, and I want to get to work on this customer's motor. So this is a regular customer of mine. I think I built this about 1.5 years ago. It was rode hard and put away wet. Started smoking, so he went ahead and sent it. And comes from Illinois. And so what we're going to do is I gave him a holler. And I don't feel good about just doing top ends on motors, so I want to go ahead and tear it all the way down anyway, which I'm going to do. And had mentioned to him about what we were doing with the crankshafts and whatnot, so he was game. So this is going to be the guinea pig motor for the 150, and what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and put it together here. We'll put it on a stand, break it in, send it, make sure she's good to go, put it in a box, send it to Illinois, and basically let him have his way with it and see how it holds up, and then we'll give you some updates on that. So gonna tear it apart real quick. Figured that we'll just let the camera go for a few while I tear it down. So excited about doing this too. Obviously we have all the parts for this. There's no reason why I can't get this on the motor stand quicker than the 200, because like I said, I'm going to have to give our Trailmaster people a call, see if I can get some CVT covers for the 200. So we can get that going. Clean these plastics up. Set them on the floor over here. When you're taking off your tensioner, you might want to break it loose first with the screwdriver while it's hammered down. It's just hard to do when it's in your hand. And all I do is just loosen the cover up so I can get it off while it's in my hand. I have no issues using a gun while taking it apart. I kind of use it while I'm putting it back together, but I always go over it by hand, and I really don't send it hard when I'm assembling a motor. I like to do everything with my hand for the final tightening. So the main goal now, I'm going to get this tore apart, and she's a little dirty, so I'm going to go ahead and get the cases cleaned up, give it some curb appeal, and I'm going to have to actually bore the cases. And the reason why is you can't put a drop in, if you're planning on putting any stroker motor in your engine. It will not work using a drop-in kit. So she's going to have to be 100%, old school 61mm board instead of using a drop-in kit. Currently he's got a drop-in kit in here now, so that is not going to be able to be used. I'll probably take a look at this head too and give it a valve job. And this is basically the same motor as what you would find in a Trailmaster or Hammerhead GTS. But this particular motor comes out of a Helix. But again, it's the same engine platform with the internal reverse. Pair of needle nose, clip out. One, two, different This pin a little pushy push. There we go. This table never gets fully cleared off anymore. I have an issue with this flywheel here as far as the puller threading on. Yeah. Hope we can get this thing off and let's put a new one on here. I'm going to take the fan off because this is going to be such a hard time. Normally you can get, with the SSP-G fans, you can just get the puller on there and pull it off one piece, but not this time. Get a wrench on it if I need to. Flywheel puller threads in reverse. There we go. You want to get a good amount of threads in the puller, because if you don't, you just rip the threads. It's really fine threaded, and you don't want to rip the threads out of it. She's going, she's just going tough. Give it one more turn, I think that'll do it. I hope that'll do it. There we go. I can just foresee the headache that would have been. Might have to take a wrench to get that off. Starter clutch nut. Here it is. Once I get this motor done, my next project's gonna be clear off this bench. Which way I got this going? Yep. Time for a bigger gun. Alright, get the big guns out. Yeah, I don't want to stick my finger in there. That was on there. Very rarely I ever got to get one of these out to get her off. Nope, crank's coming out with it. Okay. All right. All right, that's it. We're gonna take it, clean it up, and she should look a little different when it comes back. All right, we got our motor all cleaned up. Now, it's being a little difficult, so. Seems like the crank bearing is just being a little difficult, so I'm gonna help it out a little bit. I don't like to whack on them with a hammer. So I'm heating up the journal. Trying to be careful because I just installed new seals and everything in there and I don't want to melt them. going to do is try and get the bearing really, really cold. If there's any left. No, that might be it. Oops. Alright, so hopefully this just slides right in. Like that. So, alright, stroker crank is in. If you notice the blue stuff on the gasket, that is not RTB. I use something called Halomar Blue, and I've been using it now for the last couple years. And the reason why I do it is I found I'd be building motors, and shortly after, I mean, higher compression motors for the racers, and shortly after it blow the gasket out. So I started using this, and so far, knock on wood, 90% of the time, I really haven't had an issue since. So it's just one of them things. I'm here. It's requires no more work to do it, so better safe than sorry. Let's see if this goes on without an issue. Yeah, she's sliding on. I'm going to give it a little couple love taps. Line it up with the dowel pins. Perfect. Alright. Most of my nuts and bolts for this thing are right in here. So, cleaned it up real good. Actually cleaned up good enough in the parts washer and whatnot. I didn't feel I needed to cap everything off and blast the case. So, that made life a little easier. I already have the case board for the 61 millimeter. I don't know of the real name to differentiate the drop-in kit from the non-drop-in kit, so we'll say the true 61 millimeter cylinder. Need one bolt that's a little longer. Is that my bolt? Yep, that's my bolt. Hopefully, on this video, unlike the QMK assembly, I won't have camera issues when it comes to putting on the top end. Alright. Idler sprocket. Starter clutch. Oops. Alright, so again, I think I mentioned in the QMK video, brand new aftermarket cranks very rarely come with Woodruff keys, so keep that in mind whenever you order an aftermarket crank. You can pop them out of your existing crank, but they might not be as true and straight as they used to either. They do get stressed out from time to time. The fingers are a little oily, so this is going to be a little slippery. You want to go there, I'll put you there. Turn it over and see if it's any better. That one's giving me a hard time. thought about this, I probably would have tried and put these on when they're not in the motor, just because the starter clutch one, it's just kind of hard to get your fingers to get it to do what you want it to do. Try taking the chain out. I just realized when I dropped the crank in, I didn't even check to see if the cam chain is on the sprocket, and it's not, so I'm gonna have to fix that also. Almost acting like this key's a little fat. Get that one. Being somewhat difficult. Our oil pump in. Cover. Oop. Getting ahead of myself. Sprocket and chain. Nut. Starter clutch. Okay. Here's our cover. I'll just was expecting it because the gasket stuck to it and came off nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Okay. Remember, longest bolts go in the bottom. For the strap. Now, I am going to find, I haven't even taken this out yet, but this is kind of stuck in there. I'm going to find a different flywheel. I did not like the way that is coming off and going on, so. Alright, I found a more better flywheel. Crankshaft box anymore. Figure I turn the motor around so I can kind of show you how to go about it. What I'm trying to do, not a whole lot of room, but I'm just trying to get the chain back on the sprocket. Maybe. There we go. Alright. So I just had to work it back on there. Let that hang there. Take the gasket cutter, the gasket scraper, and cut these off. Okay. I am going to throw some new studs in. Now, if you're installing studs, Set of studs. I mean, they're two different lengths. I don't know. Some places you can buy the two longer ones and the two shorter ones together, but they're two different lengths. All right. The longer ones go on the cam chain side, and the shorter ones go on the flat wheel side. So these are the two longer ones. And these are the two shorter ones. That's just a stud tool. Help your driver remove a stud. That's it. Base gasket number 1. Get some dowel pins. Gasket on, I'll get the pins on. Everything through there. Gasket number 1, here's our cylinder kit. So I'm going to steal gasket number 2 out of here. Actually, that's thinner than I want. So I'm going to grab a couple from over here. This is basically what I had to go through and put the stroker in the Q&K. So, same premise. The only difference at this point was that the stud spacing is a little different. So I'm using different gaskets and whatnot. This is the internal reverse motors from, I come in Trailmaster, Hammerheads, and American SPROTWORKS. They are 8K spacing. So push everything around the dowel pins. Okay. Get this out of the way. Alright, so at this point now, I'm going to move some stuff. Here's our 61mm cylinder. Here's our rings. Alright, so first thing you want to remember is always big relief to the top. And here's how I'm going to clock the rings. I'm going to show you. So if I were to pretend that the piston is the clock, and there's my bigger relief, that's my intake relief, and I call this 12 o'clock right here. Alright, and then this would be 6, and then this would be 3, that would be 9. Okay, when I do my oil rings, this squiggly thicker oil ring I put in first, and I put that at 6 o'clock. And then the way I clock the other two is basically 45 degrees, or right in the middle between 3 and 6. and the other oil ring, the thin one, will go over there. Okay. As far as my compression rings, the first ring, and it doesn't matter which, but one ring is going to be clocked between 12 and 3, and the other one's going to be clocked between 12 and 9. Alright, so if I look at the piston, my compression rings are going to do this, then my oil rings are going to be gapped here. Alright, so compression ring is the top half, oil rings are the bottom half, and where you see the lines go straight through, that's where my gaps are. You never want to put any of the gaps, ring gaps, on the side where the wrist pin is, the wrist pin hole. You want to avoid that. But you don't want any of these rings gapped up, or ring gaps to line up with each other. Alright, you want to keep them all separate. So that is how I'm about to put these on. So again, this is how I found out I needed to wear some glasses when it comes to this. The moment I realized I was blind. So now I'm separating my compression rings from my remaining oil wipers. And these are really thin oil rings. Alright, so I'm going to gap this one over here. So when I put the ring on, I'm starting at the gap. It's right there on that line I made. And I'm just going to work it around under at the bottom of the larger squiggly looking ring. Okay, I'm going to do that line over here. I'm going to line this gap up with that. And I'm on the top of the squiggly oil ring, and I'm going to work it around. I'm just going to slip in there. And then when I'm all said and done, I'm just going to make sure that they're not overlapping, overhanging on the ring gill. Okay. As far as your compression rings, you have two. You have, now some are silver, some just have a silver edge, but there's going to be one that's going to be all black with no light silver edge. There should be a stamp or any writing on these rings, and it'll be random. The writing always goes up. The black ring is the bottom one. So clock it. Whoops. Got the dropsies. So I'm going to go for that gap there. I'm on the bottom gill with the black ring. Ooh, make sure my writing is up. Caught myself. All right. So I'm starting my gap right there at the mark. I'm working the ring around. These are a little stiffer than the oil rings because they're a lot thicker. Okay. So you can see there's my gap. These are going to be more visible than the oil rings. And there's my line. Okay, so when it squeezes, boom. And then my silver ring or the lighter ring, or it might be a silver edged ring or whatever, writing to the top. And I'm going for the gap on the other side of that. And then I'm just going to work it on. So that is a ringed piston right there. Now, I'm going to move a couple things and bring my cylinder over here. Slide this motor back a little bit. Okay, so that's my top. That's where my intake in relief is. I know that's the top of the cylinder as it sits on the motor. So that's going to go in this way. So what I'm going to do, and it's just the way I do things to make my life easier. I might have there are clips in this kit, or if not, no big deal. Brand new set right there. Got a couple mixed match ones. There we go. Perfect. Alright. So these are my piston clips. The other thing I didn't see is wrist pin. so I know my piston's going that way. I'm going to put this clip in first. Oops, I overshot it a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Okay, give it a little tug because well, I'm not in it. There we go. That one's all said and done. There's a little tab there. I just give it a little tug to make sure she's in. All right, I got that side in. Take this and we'll put a little oil on it. My wrist pin. Stick it in there. Let the oil get all. Okay. Now, with the little oil, I'm going to put it inside my cylinder. I use Lucas got it's breaking oil with zinc additive in it. I've used Maxima assembly lube. So, turn my cylinder upside down. And this might work easier for most of you, and it might not. You know, everybody's got a preference. There's really no right or wrong way to do it as long as you don't gouge up the cylinder. So, what I do is I place it on top here, and I compress the rings with my fingers, my thumb, and I just kind of work it into the cylinder. One ring at a time, and just keep going around. Okay, right to the wrist pin. So, the reason why I do that, and I put this clip in first, is because you saw it's a little bit of a handful to do it. It's when you got all this stuff in the way, it gets to be more of a handful. So, I just have it all set up, and it just makes my life easier. All right, so at this point, you take your piston and your cylinder. Slide onto your studs. I'm probably going to get in the way for a moment just to line this up with the rod. Tap on it with. There. Oh, guide's holding me up. There we go. Using my pliers to push it all the way in. Gonna go ahead and put in my other clip. A little tug to make sure she's planted. All right. Again, this is just a preference thing. I use a spring hook. It's just easier for me because I used to use a magnet and draw the chain through, but then I was trying to get work the cylinder on there, the magnet would fall off, the chain would slide back, and then sometimes fall off the sprocket, and then you can only imagine if it's hard to work the chain on without the jug being on there. With the jug on there, it just makes it a little bit harder. So I'm gonna keep this, so this is basically hanging over the table for a little weight. Let gravity help me out a little bit, and I'm gonna work the piston on. Sure, my chain's not pinching. tap until it finds its way. There goes my tool. Alright, so there she goes. So I'm going to go ahead and chain and everything. Actually going to hold this like this. So using my thumb to hold the chain. Just rolling it over. We're going to get top dead center right there. Now, there's a little bit of a lip there. I use my fingernail to judge that. Now, if I was building the motor normally, I'd be like, yeah, let me use a thinner gasket. Let me take a gasket out, because I don't put 3 gaskets in every motor. But because this is a stroker, we don't want to have an issue there, and we need to space the cylinder up. What I found doing the QMK is that once I tightened all the bolts down and whatnot, this was in a it was a lot higher than it looks to be right now. So I'm going to leave it at 3 gaskets. So far, 3 gaskets seems to be the magic number for every stroker I've built so far. This one included, even though it's the first time I've done this kind of motor. And then the QMK motor. You know, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the strokes are so close being stock that when you put a stroker in there, it's pretty much going to jump up the same amount of space. So that's where I'm going to leave it for the night. The reason being, I want to see if I want to clean up his stock head, and I want to do a valve job on it, and that's going to take me a little time. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave us right here for tonight, and then we will get it back together. The goal is that I'd like to get this thing shipped out. So hopefully maybe tomorrow we'll have it on a stand and running, because I do have an exhaust pipe, unlike the QMK. I do have an exhaust pipe that I can use to test this out. So it should be interesting. But as far as I know, I believe it's been attempted or whatnot. I think in another video I talked about, I had a customer who, there was a company building him a motor that was stroked like this, and it didn't work out so well. And how I know is because I have the crank for it in a box over there. So I did get a chance to backwards engineer that one, and then kind of take my own measurements and figure my stuff out. So I'm pretty optimistic about this. But that's it. We'll call it quits for tonight. And if you need parts, go to gotbuggies.com. If you have any comments, leave me in the comment section. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot, guys. Till the next one.